Hello and welcome to another edition of Books Over Coffee. I'm Vidya. Today, few friends of the coffee shop, the collective of Holy Angels Convent batchmates, share their reviews about the interesting books that they have read. Enjoy watching.
Hello, I'm Biju Parameswaran. I'm going to talk about the book The Far Field by Madhuri Vijay. Madhuri is a 30-something writer born in Bangalore and now living in Hawaii, USA. This came out in early 2019 and won the prestigious JCB Prize for Literature, which is the richest literary prize in India. The book is 400 plus pages and quite impressive for a debut novel. It talks about a protagonist called Shalini, and she's a yuppie, privileged, pub-going Bangalore girl. And the other central character of the book is her mother, who is a somewhat mean, self-centered woman given to mood swings. There is a father who is largely absent, he being a workaholic, a rich man of course. The emptiness, the hollowness of their lives were filled to some extent by a visitor, somebody who they met by chance, a Kashmiri clothes salesman. And that relationship between the visitor and the mother especially is at the crux of the novel. Now when the novel starts, the mother is dead, but Shalini thinks that she needs to dwell into the past of the salesman who had nearly a decade back left Bangalore for they don't know where. She has a hint of an idea about his place in Kashmir, so she makes the trip there. Now it's very significant that when this book was written, Article 370 giving special status to Kashmir was very much in vogue. So it's quite turbulent out there, and it has been so for a long time with all the Hindu-Muslim skirmishes. Now the book is very lucidly written and it was an absolute page turner for me. At least for the 3/4 of the novel, she retains the interest with very mature, level-headed prose and keeps us guessing about the aspects of the relationship also in fact. And after that point, it gets slightly political. There are some surprises also in store for us in the way the plot is delineated. However, in the end, we end up with a good, memorable reading experience. So I think I am grateful to Madhuri Vijay for this wonderful experience, which I am now sharing with you. So this is the book here, The Far Field by Madhuri Vijay. Thank you.
Hi friends, I am Sree Vidya from Trivandrum. Today we are going to review the book The Final Diagnosis by Arthur Haley. It is one of the famous books written by the author. Arthur Haley is a British-Canadian novelist. He was born on 5th April 1920 at UK. His other works include Overload, Money Changers, Wheels, Airport, Hotel, etc. Many of his books were translated into nearly 38 languages and over 150 million copies were sold. Regarding this final diagnosis, this happens in the background of Three Counties Hospital, where Dr. Pearson was a senior pathologist. He handles the department single-handedly. Due to the delay in lab reports and other problems, the management decides to hire a new pathologist to assist him. And Dr. David Coleman, 31 years, a young person, joins the duty to assist Dr. Pearson. And soon Dr. David Coleman realizes that this old man is reluctant to give up his hierarchy and also he monopolizes all the things. His lab was erratic and not meticulous, and this annoys Dr. David Coleman. And faulty diagnosis of Dr. Pearson results in the death of a baby. And soon another female nurse was diagnosed of cancer, and Dr. Pearson immediately confirms the cancer and decides to amputate her leg, which was later found right. And Dr. Pearson was a person who was not following the rules in the autopsy room and other things. He does what he wants. That is the main problem. Dr. Pearson's calmness, thoroughness and expertise was found when the hospital was struck with an epidemic, typhoid. Nobody was able to identify who the carrier was, and Dr. Pearson, under his guidance, around 100 samples were checked at the hospital daily, and at last they were able to arrest the epidemic. Dr. Pearson's main problem was the lack of his medical knowledge in the latest trends in the medical field, and he is not used to non-conventional methods. He is sticking only to traditional methods, and all other the stress felt by each and every department is clearly depicted here. I strongly recommend this book because it is very invisibly we feel that we are inside a hospital, and the language is very simple and superb. This review is dedicated to all my doctor friends. Thank you.
Hi, I am Jayashree from Chennai. Today I am going to talk to you about the novel Paalangal by Shivashankari. Shivashankari is an Indian author who writes in the Tamil language. Her stories touch on love, loss, friendships, drug abuse, problems faced by the contemporary society. The list goes on. Her writing is natural and identifiable with most readers. Her novels Napathe Natkal, Nandu, Kutti, Uri Singam Muilagiradu, etc. were made into movies. Her novel on drug abuse, Avan, was made into a TV series, Subha, which premiered in Doordarshan in the year 1987. Paalangal first appeared as a serial story in the Tamil magazine Ananda Vigadan in the year 1983. It is a multi-generational story spanning over 3 different time periods from 1907 to 1985. The story is set in a South Indian milieu and depicts how culture and habits have evolved with time. The author portrays tradition with warmth and nostalgia but doesn't lose sight of the evil that it nurtures. Period isolation, widow weeds, births, deaths, rituals, ceremonies. This story is a good canvas of tradition and cultural mores. The story is about women of 3 time periods, their mellowing as they age and how they behave in similar situations. It portrays how a mother becomes a bridge connecting the deep-rooted beliefs of her elders with the idiosyncrasies of her modern children. The way a mother acts as a bridge between generations, notwithstanding the fact that she herself faced many problems, is portrayed beautifully. The way in which the author has dealt with the changing family relationships influenced by the ever-changing society is really impressive. The scenarios in each generation are depicted meticulously. This is the first Tamil novel that I have read, and the story resonates with me in more ways than one. Being a Brahmin, I was able to relate with most of the traditions and rituals mentioned in the book. The story of Shivakamu has similarity to the things I had heard from my grandmother and grandaunts. Maithili's story was interesting and more or less resembled our family, my dad being more lenient and modern and siding us in many ways. Aparna's story is really good. The dad-daughter bonding is shown beautifully here. The book won the Kasturi Srinivas Award for the Best Novel in 1983-84. JNU has added Paalangal to its library as an authentic document of Brahmin traditions. A chapter of the book recorded in the author's voice is available at the archives of the US Library of Congress. This book is a treasure of South Indian tradition. It has been translated in English as Bridges by S. Krishnan. The obscure intricacies arising from intergenerational relationships gives Paalangal a universal appeal and might propel it into the hall of timeless classics. I would recommend this book as a good read to all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vinod Nair and I live in Washington State in the United States. Tharoorosaurus, that is the name of the book published by Dr. Shashi Tharoor in 2020. No surprise for people who are familiar with Dr. Tharoor and his works and tweets, it's a book about unusual words. Dr. Shashi Tharoor, among other things, is a 3-time Member of Parliament representing the beautiful city of Trivandrum, Kerala. He's a best-selling author and has won numerous literary awards, including a National Sahitya Academy Award. About the book, let's start with the title, Tharoorosaurus. It was coined by a publisher friend of his. It's a combination of 3 different words, Tharoor, Tyrannosaur, since so many are terrified of difficult words, and Thesaurus. As I said before, the book is about unusual words, 53 words to be specific, 1 for each week, 53 because 2020, the year the book was published, was a leap year. It's a collection of words. The words are arranged alphabetically. Each word is a chapter, and each chapter begins with the meaning of the word and talks a little about the origin of the word. The similarity with the dictionary ends there. It then goes into anecdotes, mostly humorous in the Tharoor way. What I like most about the book is that despite the topic being not so frequently used words, Dr. Tharoor has made this an easy read and an enjoyable read. And the examples of how to use the word in a sentence are put in today's context in most cases, which makes it very relatable. It's also a great reference book, although limited to, the 53 words. I believe my command of English language is average or above. And for me, more than 1/3 of the words were new, such as kerfuffle and cromulent. And the words I was already familiar with, such as troll and spoonerism, I learned a lot more about. Since a lot of these words are uncommon, an interesting challenge would be to slide them into your day-to-day conversations when appropriate. Not only do you master these words, but you also get to see the responses of the people you're speaking to. Kind of like what Dr. Tharoor does in his tweets. Whether you love playing Scrabble and crossword puzzles, or you happen to be someone who likes trivia and anecdotes, there is something in this book for you. You could either read the whole book during a weekend, or you can finish it chapter by chapter during your spare time, like I did. Or it could be a cool birthday gift for your favorite niece. Thank you for watching and listening.
Hi, I am Anitha Nair and I am from Trivandrum. I would like to talk about a book titled Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This book caught my attention since the title was catchy and unusual. So I decided to do my research, and the Google Guru tells me that crawdads are nothing but freshwater crawfish. Some areas it is known as crawdads or crawdaddies. Maybe it is a cousin of our lobster family. The story is set in the backgrounds of the swamplands of North Carolina. This is a debut novel by Delia Owens, who is an American wildlife scientist. So the story spans over the time period of 1962 to 70 and follows the life of a young girl called Kaya Clark over the ages of 6 to 25. She is abandoned by her family and lives in a shack in the swamplands of North Carolina. Initially, she is a scared young girl and does not know how to survive. Soon, however, she learns the tricks of the nature and survives by learning hunting skills, camouflage tricks, and also makes money by collecting and selling shells. As Kaya steps into teenage, she gathers the attention of two young boys, the mature, sincere Tate and the arrogant posh boy Chase. Tate teaches her how to read, which becomes the turning point in her life. Soon, she turns into a voracious reader and with her uncanny understanding of the wildlife around her, becomes a successful writer. This really enhances my trust and belief in young children who, when left to themselves, can learn to nurture their talents and make a meaningful, successful life. The book also depicts the prejudices of the white people against the colored. Girls like Kaya are termed as white trash. But it is heartening to see that this white trash are wholeheartedly supported by the colored people. The racism which existed in the country during that time is clearly depicted in some of the chapters. So as I said earlier, Kaya turns into a successful author and makes enough money to lay a strong foundation for her future life. Initially, the story has a prologue which is set in the swamplands of North Carolina, where a dead body of a young man is found. So this is a murder. The police begins an investigation into the murder, which zooms into Kaya Clerk. So is she the murderer? Will she go into jail? What happens to Kaya finally? That's for you to find out, since I don't want to spoil the fun. I recommend this strongly as a good reading. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Laiju. I'm talking to you from Trivandrum. Today I'm going to talk to you about this book, Shantaram, and it's written by Gregory David Roberts. I came across this book after seeing an interview in Oprah Winfrey Show. And this Gregory David Roberts, he's an Australian author. In fact, he was a convicted Australian prisoner who escapes the prison and he tries to go to Europe. And en route to Europe, he ends up in Bombay, where he decides to spend a little bit of his time. But that little bit of time got extended to nearly 10 years. And since he had to escape authorities and he did not have proper documents, he ends up living in the slums in Bombay. And for an Australian to get used to the slums in Bombay, it was not easy. And in one of the incidents in this book, a fire breaks out in the slum, and then he ends up helping the slum dwellers with his first aid kit. And that made him Lin Baba, a well respected, accepted and loved doctor among them. In fact, he meets a lot of interesting locals. He ends up learning the language Marathi. One of the interesting characters that he meets in this book is Prabhakar, who becomes his guide in Bombay. Prabhakar takes Lin Baba to his village to meet his mother, and mother finds Lin Baba so full of happiness and peace of mind that she gives him the name Shantaram, and that is the name of this book. And another interesting person that he meets is the underworld Don from Afghanistan, whose name was Khader Khan. And Lindsay develops a very close relationship with Khader Khan. In fact, Khader Khan becomes his mentor in this book. And with him, he learns the art of fake currency, black market currency, how to make fake passport, etc. And he, in fact, follows them to the mountain ranges in Afghanistan, where he helps them to smuggle weapons for the Mujahideen fighters. And because of his connection with Khader Khan and such activities, he ends up in the prison in Bombay, where he endures a lot of physical and mental abuse, both from the prison authorities as well as from the other inmates. But because of his friendship and relationship with Khader Khan, he ends up getting released from the prison. And he is very awestruck by seeing so much of tolerance and endurance among Indians, even after a chaotic lifestyle. And another character that he meets in this book is Carla, a Swiss American lady who is very beautiful yet so dangerous. And he falls for her, and they end up having a very complicated relationship in this book. This book ends up by eventually Lin Baba going back to Australia, where he finishes his prison term, and then he writes this book which fetches him a lot of money and fame. And in fact, he starts a charity foundation to help the poor people, especially in their health issues. The narrative is so good that there is a debate going on where they debate about the thin line between the fact and the fiction of this book. The sequel, the Mountain Shadows, is more fact based, but I find Shantaram more interesting, and I dedicate this small review to all my coffee shop friends. I hope at least some among you can get a copy of this and have an enjoyable read. Thank you.
You are watching Books Over Coffee, a production of the Coffee Shop.